I see we have the usual suspects in there.
And Ted F-bomb, go.
Yeah.
Go. Son of a... Oh, look, we got Mr. Clover in there. Hello, Flint.
Yeah, Flint.
Good to see you in there.
Mm-hmm. Grizzly.
Nice group. Mr. Tarantelli leaving us a blank.
We're 720p again, huh?
Oh.
Why is that?
I didn't notice that before we started. I was going to, and I saw our previous recording was 1080. So
we back out and
it's
come back
probably
in?
No, because we can't do those with a live. Yeah.
Maybe it's better for the YouTubers or the people watching us on YouTube that it's in 720p.
Yeah, it makes it smooths out all the. It puts enough grain on our faces to where it just
the Vaseline on the lens, Yeah. Or just touched by an angel or any other
Yeah. No, I mean, as long as the audio is good, that's what we're here for. So it's all good.
I agree.
And yeah, this whole thing, Ben, it's like flying. It's like, well, we have passed our abort point. And we have to go. If we turn this thing off, then it'll be a whole thing that has to get done. Yeah. Unacceptable resolution. Yes, I agree. It's fine.
Yeah. Says the guy who took the glamour shot photo today.
AJ
and I were flying today. We'll talk about it later.
Okay.
But he does this smile. You know, in the old glamour shots, how they
like the
you kind of had that going.
Maybe that's something we should do. Since we don't really have our proper promotional photograph for the episode 100, maybe that's what we do. Actually, can't we just get AI to can't you just tell AI to say, like, here's 30 pictures of each of us, make this into a glamour shot array or whatever, or like the Olin Mills style where it's
that's what I mean. That's exactly
straight
what I
on,
mean.
and then the kind of awkward profile view with
kind
different
of
light.
The awkward family photos. The whole awkward family photos thing would be awesome to do for 100th thumbnail.
Let's just keep the bad ideas coming. Let's just get them all out.
Eventually, we'll find something that's good, right?
Yeah.
All right.
It's 8:01. Do we want to kick this puppy off?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's not kick puppies. Let's not do that.
Welcome to the Midlife Pilot Podcast. We are glad you're with us. What is it like to become a pilot in your 40s and 50s? The challenges are unique for those of us in midlife, but so are the rewards. Hosts Ben, Brian, and Ted talk learning to fly, growing as pilots, and the joy of flying to destinations. The purpose of the podcast is not to teach, but to share knowledge and experiences of being a midlife pilot. Join the Midlife Pilot community and listen in every week. We are not CFIs or particularly intelligent, so if you want to learn how to fly, talk to anyone else other than the hosts of a podcast. Even this intro was too challenging for us, and we used a robot to do it. Okay, checklists are complete. Let's get the show started.
Hello there, and welcome to episode 91 of the Midlife Pilot Podcast. My name is Ben. I'm a pilot here in the Atlanta metro area. Commercial rating, commercial certificate, instrument rating, and also fly a Cessna 182. Some people call the Beast. I like to call it the Beast. We have tonight with us, as always, from the Bachelorette Super Charlie, Nashville, Tennessee, my friend Brian Siskin. Hello, sir.
Hello and good evening. I'm excited to be here on this holiday Monday evening.
Laboring on Labor Day.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Also joining us from the West Coast, Portlandia, where they keep things weird. Flying a flight design CTLS, our sport pilot extraordinaire, Ted. Good afternoon, sir.
Hey. Yeah, it's earlier. Yeah. I was thinking, because it's September now, it's going to become dark out as I do the show, as we get into winter. And it's a weird thought that the show time doesn't change, but it won't be light outside anymore.
We'll be greeting you with a good evening at that point.
Yes.
For those of you who don't know, we broadcast Monday nights, usually at 8 p.m. Eastern. The live chat is open for questions and comments. Got an outstanding group tonight. We're glad you're all here. But it is a audio podcast, and you can subscribe using your favorite app. You can find all of our podcast links, our Patreon links, everything. Our merch store is at midlifepilotpodcast.com. And you can send us messages there. You can leave us voicemails there. We'd love getting your feedback. Would love to get a 5-star review if you can take the time to do that. That would be really awesome. And yeah, we're had a kind of a busy week this week for me personally, but wanted to hear about what you guys are up to.
Well, listen, I feel like that universally this past week was kind of like get a bunch of stuff done because everybody knows the holiday is coming. I got exactly no flying done this week, but I made room for some things to happen, and I'm doing some planning now. So I'm excited about. I've talked a lot about how I really enjoyed going to Marfa, Texas last year, flying out there. And I am going to return, or at least
Nice.
that's my intention. And so it's a really neat place. There's a lot of different choices I can make about the way I go, and then I will go whatever the way the weather says I go. But I'm going to try to go a little bit more southerly and maybe get down to New Orleans and then work my way over and then kind of shoot back up. It's been really fun to do all that flight planning. I actually thought about dropping my first plan into the community Discord to see what people thought, because as much as we talk in the community about a lot of things, no-go decisions or all that, I love the group think of flight planning. And even if I'm pretty confident in the plan, I still think that there's value and, kind of just putting it out there and seeing
Yeah.
what people think. So, and maybe they'll find they'll expose, some weakness in the plan. Right.
And
So, which
there's
is very cool.
plenty of listeners along that route that you can stop in and grab a
Yeah.
coffee or grab a.
Believe me, I have thought about that a lot because I, I sort of imagine the plane just not starting at any place that I might, you know what I mean? So I'm thinking
Right.
about it as like, okay, I know that Mike Golf is in New Orleans.
Right.
Right.
And so, of course, Mike Golf's not going to, let me, he's not going to leave me stranded, right? Of course, right, Mike Golf, if you're listening. So, no, but so there's a lot of ways to do that. I am going to be trying to bust it though, and really kind of get
Yeah,
done.
yeah.
I don't have a ton of
But you've got
time.
two ways to go. You're going there and coming back, so you can
Yeah,
mix it up a little
so,
bit.
and then I'm going to add to the trip, hopefully this time, going down to Big Bend and doing some flying around there.
Oh, man.
So it's very ambitious, but the last thing I want to say about it that I just think is the coolest thing for those of you that are in the middle of your training or just got out there with your private pilot certificate. And, we talk a lot about kind of the feeling of sort of what now, you've been head down training so hard. What do you do now? And obviously you do the things like fly your family and your friends around and do all those fun things. But eventually you're going to start wanting to go places. And that's the whole point. So,
Yeah.
what I think is particularly neat about this endeavor of this trip that I'm looking at is that the first time I went to Marfa, I didn't know anybody or anything. I got some helpful pointers, but I mean, I didn't know anybody, and I got there and just I was there completely by myself. And then I would just go around and I ended up meeting some great people while I was there. Now they're friends.
Right.
When I'm
Yeah.
going back here this time and they're going to let me, stay at their house.
Oh,
You know,
nice.
how cool is that? All of that, the general aviation and just putting yourself out there. So I've made some really great friends like that, really interesting people that I would have never met otherwise. So anyway, I'm excited about planning the trip and hopefully it'll all happen.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm going to link in the show notes. I'll link to your Marfa video from last time because I was
Yeah.
good adventure. And those types of trips are always fun. Yeah.
And you're going a little bit later in the year, so hopefully it won't be as hot
Oh,
as
it'll
when
be
you went
20
to the
degrees
last
cooler.
one.
Yeah, it'll be the density altitude will not be anything like what it was.
Oh, man.
So yeah, it'll be a much. I'm a knock on wood, but I think it'll be a little bit easier. Plus, like you've done it. I've done it before. I've done
Right,
a thousand.
right.
I've done a
Well, it's only
thousand
going to
miles
be
in a.
easier going forward.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I've done
Yeah.
1,000 miles in a day. It's not unknown to me.
Yeah. Well, I
Mr.
had a
Timestamp, you've been flying?
yeah, I did. I flew Saturday, which was a nice almost 100-degree day here in Portland. We've been talking about doing this flight for a couple of months now, and
Hmm.
because reasons I had to wait. But my partner finally joined me flying. So she had done it.
Nice.
She had
Big
done
step.
one lap in the pattern last year and was like, no, this is, like everything is loud and moves weird. No way. And was shocked by everything. So she was ready to come and try again. So did a lap in the pattern and a couple of bumps. We went early, but a couple of bumps. She got used to that feeling. And then we went and did about a 35-minute flight and
Wow.
to my favorite diner. And yeah, then came back and yeah. So, and it'll be in the video, but got some quite a bit of bumpy turbulence and also got the wing lifted twice when we were on downwind.
Mm.
So 30-degree angle in 1 second and back. Nice, so she survived that and
She
didn't
was
put claw
tested.
marks through my leg. So yeah.
Yeah, she was tested on this one. But
Yeah.
that's still for a lot of us who get our license as a midlifer or our certificates, and we have a partner. It's so important for that to go well because that's just going to help propagate and help move your aviation journey along with somebody. And
Yeah.
and I feel terrible for people whose partners don't want to take part of it, and that's fine. They can work things out, but when you have somebody who's willing to go with you, it really does make things a lot easier. So I'm excited for you. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, we actually had somebody in the community talking about their plan, and they were sharing their plan for their first flight with their spouse. And it actually ended up being pretty valuable discussion because the plan was a little bit elaborate. And then the conversation that kind of came in after was really about, sure, you can do that, but maybe the better thing to do would be just to kind of step it back a little bit. And I think that the thing that really resonated and made them change their flight plan was just talking about how the first one, you just really want it to go as well as possible. So just to keep it
Absolutely.
as simple as possible, keep yourself, as free from ATC taxation or whatever, do something very simple and doesn't put you through something too busy. And then also gives you an easy return quickly.
Right.
If you just need to get back. So anyway,
Yeah.
it's a whole thing, but that's awesome, man. That's like kudos, right? That's a huge deal. And did she find the all the muddled Benadryl?
She thought her coffee tasted strange, but kept drinking it. So yeah.
Whatever works.
At least we didn't switch the coffees. No. Yeah.
Did some flying today. Got some instrument approaches in with Lord Alpha Juliet. We flew up to Greenville to meet Wendell Geek for lunch.
Nice.
It was a really good day today. Did a hike this morning with Noah, my middle son, and Terry. A little 3-mile loop along the Chattahoochee River, which is pretty scenic. And got home, got changed, went out to the airport. We hopped in. I was a safety pilot for him. He was flying right seat. Did an approach into Habersham. Then I did an approach into Greenville. Had lunch. We'll have this on the Patreon member channel. We'll do some bonus audio, but we actually had Martin Pauly was on frequency when we were there.
Cool.
And I gave him a shout out over the frequency, but there was no response. I think he had just got switched on to it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and there was another kind of exciting time, something that happened to me. I need to post it in first time achievements, but Atlanta Center held on to us too long. He was pretty busy and had to do a relay with an American Airlines pilot to get a frequency change. So it's the first time doing that, but and it went smoothly. It was like it worked exactly like it was supposed to work.
I've
So,
got to
but we'll,
say that American pilot, uh, bad short-term memory. All he could remember was that you were a Skylane, no tail number. Then you say your tail number, and he scrambles the digits, like immediately relaying it. Which, I mean, fine, it all worked out, but it cracked me up.
yeah. Want to let the audience know that we're going to do a special 100th episode that's coming up at the end of October. We are going to be in the same room together, the three
Yeah,
of us, along with the OG, Mr. Chris Moran, and we're going to his airport, and we're going to broadcast from his hangar, and that's going to be on October 28th at 4 Golf 7. This is not necessarily a meetup per se. Everybody's invited if they want to come. You'll be in charge of your own accommodations, but wanted to let you know it's going to be a live show on the 28th of October, and it will. I think the dynamic's going to be a little interesting because we'll probably be stepping over each other. We're in the same room. It just seems like it would be. I don't know. Maybe it'll go smoothly.
Maybe we should put partitions between us, like the dating game. But yeah, I mean, I'm super excited, and yes, because we're doing it on a Monday night, and I wouldn't expect a lot of people would be free to fly to a remote place in West Virginia to hang out with us on a Monday night. But all that being said, we might have an audience of 3, or whatever. We're open to it. And Chris is on the board of his airport, and also is a great audio and video technician, producer, does a lot of elaborate things in his world. So I think that between all of us, we're going to be able to put together something that actually looks and sounds pretty good. And I think we'll probably be in a hangar. I'm not sure. But whatever it is,
okay.
it'll be great. And, wait, wasn't there? We'll talk more about it, but
Yeah.
the details are getting sorted out, but it is a super exciting, thing to hit 100. And, we'll get into this more, but I just want to thank you guys for coming on and taking over for Chris and getting us to this point.
Yeah.
More on that later. I have some thoughts on that, but I do want to go ahead and maybe segue into our show topic. I want to make
Yeah.
sure we leave enough time for it. We have one of our Patreon members emailed us some feedback, who is a relatively new minted private pilot, and he sent us his top 10 tips for student pilots or new pilots. And this is from Braeden D. And there's 10 of them. And what we thought we would do is we'd do a round robin. We'll each take one and, comment on it and move through that. How does that sound?
Sounds good.
Awesome. So tip number 1 from Braeden D. Money is the biggest barrier of entry to this hobby career. If at all possible, save up 75% or more of the total cost of training prior to starting. Want to attend the best 141 school with the newest planes and latest avionics? Do your research, hours of research, talk to current students and the CFIs on what the cost will be, and all said and done. Most 141 schools advertise 40 hours as the quote for a PPL certificate. You just need to know very few people, if any, finish at 40 hours. And the cost will drastically be more the more hours you rack up in training. No instructor on the Discovery flight advertises how hard landing is to grasp. That was an extra 10 hours for me to grasp. It for everybody. I've heard the average number of hours it takes for people to take their check ride is around 65 hours. And that's right where it was for me. There's some folks I've seen on the Student Pilot Over 50 Facebook group that there's 120 hours, 130 hours, whatever the case may be. But he brings up a good point there. And, flying clubs, we've talked about ad nauseum, Part 61s. There's a lot of ways to skin that cat.
Well, I think one of the things too is and I think we've even said this before, have whatever you need to carve out budget wise, have that. Don't be in a spot where don't do as I did, where I I I did the very best I could, but I was up against financial pressure at the end of that process that made my check ride prep and a lot of things a lot more stressful because I needed to get those flights done because I could not afford to keep having, to keep doing any kind of check ride prep. Those are very expensive, long instructor led sessions. And I just wanted to get it done. So, yeah, all good points. And yes, it's harder to land than what you think. And money is get used to that being a problem.
Yeah.
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 I mean, that's universal.
Yeah. I loved two things. The one is it's not going to be 40 hours. And then, yes, landings. Don't budget the time for that. That 10 hours, I'd say, is doing really good. Flint in our comment said he's at 51 hours right now, 200 landings, and still have 10 or 15 hours left before check ride ready.
That's
That
good.
sounds about right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you're just getting into it, plan on 65, maybe 80 hours. Just, yeah, and load up the money cannon.
Yeah.
That's
And if
right.
it goes a little long, so what? You're better trained. You're going to be that much more confident when you get out on your own because you're not just getting it done in 48 hours and then getting out there and thinking, oh my gosh, what have I done?
Yeah.
Anyway, so, all right, let's get on to number 2, shall we? And some of these kind of bleed into each other, right? But
Yep.
we're just, and by the way, thanks again, Braeden, for this feedback. I mean, he basically sent us a thesis paper. It's pretty
Yeah.
great launching point for this conversation to quickly get through this stuff. So here's number 2. Rote memorization is not your friend. There's a difference between memorizing and understanding a concept or fundamental of flying. The knowledge that is needed to truly understand everything that comes with ground training involves more than just the 2-hour block of instruction with your instructor a couple days a week. It takes major self-motivation to dig into the books, ask questions, and be willing to drink from the quote-unquote information fire hose outside of the schoolhouse. I fully agree. And the only thing I really have to say about this is study how people learn. And it's really when knowledge is applied and gets beyond the rote that it actually sinks in. And I'm not saying feel any more pressure about the situation, but what I did was when I needed that little bit more of motivation to get through the information fire hose and just feeling like my brain's not cut out for this or whatever, the underlying motivation for me was if I'm going to be flying my family and friends around in an airplane, then I don't want to be in a situation where I realize probably should have learned a little bit more. I probably should have learned what that actually meant as opposed to just memorizing the answer.
Right.
I just kept envisioning getting sort of caught in some situation where I really, so when you get into systems and things like that, especially, where I think that's especially important. But anyway, yeah, I agree. Rote memorization, not your friend.
I'll agree, but I'll disagree in part. I think
Pick a lane, Ted.
at least for me, there's way too much information, and some of this is being ruthless about realizing what you need to know for a written test, and what you don't need to know at all. The example I always give is 8 tomato flames. Don't memorize it. Just save yourself the effort, right? And there's things like that where it's like, this doesn't actually matter, and my brain just couldn't hold all of that stuff anyway. So I'm smart enough to know that I'm dumb, and there's a limited amount of space in my brain, or on my iceberg, if you want to call it that. So yeah.
I would agree with that. And more to what you were saying, Brian, there were some things that I didn't fully understand until like I was 100 hours in or 120. I was like, oh, that's what they meant by that. So I agree that the rote memorization is not going to really serve you well, except for on the written test. And that's great. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really all I got to say about that.
All right,
Ted, you
let
want to
me
take the next one?
yeah, let me get the next one here. No matter what phase of training you're in, the CFI works for you. Be picky about who you choose as your instructor. If possible, interview and fly with a couple prior to jumping into training. It's pretty evident early on whether they're just using CFI to build time or truly want to train students. Set a standard with them, and if they can't maintain your standards for showing up on time, having a lesson plan together, and continuously pushing you toward finishing, find another instructor. We've talked about this on other episodes. It remember I hate this phrase, who the customer is in the situation. Remember that you've got a choice, and you're ultimately in control of your training. There's no set program, assuming you're in part 61. There's no set program that must be done a certain way.
I would agree with that. I think it's important to note, though, that there are some great CFIs who are training you, but are also time building.
Yeah.
That they do take it serious. They want to go to the airlines, but they take their training seriously. And I had one of those, and he told me from the day I got into the plane with him for the first time, "Hey, I'm at 1,250 hours. I'm not going to be able to finish your training. I want to work with you. I want to teach you to do it the right way." And he got me probably 2/3 of the way through my flight training. So they're not mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to make a point on that.
I also think this is, of all the particularly midlife things, this is one where I think we are a little bit more natively we do a little we offer a little bit more scrutiny to people that we are financially engaged with,
Yeah.
in whatever capacity. We want value for our money, and I think that midlife pilots are not. I think that the paradox of the midlife pilot in so many ways is that we don't have to do this, so we're just kind of, this is a fun hobby to kind of do, and we don't take it as maybe seriously as somebody who's trying to go to the airlines. Fully not the case. If anything, we are desperate to make sure that we really understand what's going on, because we're not going to be going to the airlines, and all we're ever going to have to rely on is ourselves.
Yeah.
So I think that when it comes to engaging in that relationship, demand the things that feel natural for us midlife people to demand. Be on time, be prepared, but that goes for you too. And I've said this before, but I told my instructor at the beginning of my first lesson, and I said, "I'm going to be the hardest working student that you've ever had." And then when we finished and we were, when he met me in the DPE after the check ride, he turned to the DPA and he said, "This is the hardest working student that I've ever had," And so bring it, this is not a joke. You're putting your family in the plane. Bring your A game and demand that of the people you're paying to train you.
Yeah.
Very good. Move along to the next one. Or let's hit Nathan Ballard's comment. Brian is right on. As midlife pilots, it's a business deal between student and CFI. Everyone knows what is expected from the CFI and the student.
Yeah.
So, and then a real quick one just popped up. Ryan K said, "I'm still learning years after my check ride." And I think a lot of us can agree with that comment.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go to number 4. Nothing is more humbling than being in the run-up area in a Cessna 172 during your first cross-country solo, and a Bombardier Global 6000 passes by on the taxiway. It makes you question if you're supposed to be doing this and sharing the skies with airliners, jets, and pilots with way more experience than you. Doubt and imposter syndrome is real, and trust that it will pass as you get more experience. And I thought this was incredibly insightful. We've all had it. I felt pretty good after my private pilot check ride. Instrument, I felt pretty good. Commercial, I was like, I don't know how that happened. I felt like an imposter. And then the first time flying into Savannah in a class Charlie, I'd had all the training before. I'd flown into a Class Charlie before, but first time doing it by myself, I'm like, there's 3 Gulfstreams in line in front of me, and, why am I even here? And am I doing the right things? And, you do experience, you'll get past that.
I love the image though of the global 6,000 passes by on the taxiway. There is that factor of it's kind of the most exciting thing too, right? It's just wow, we get to participate in the same airspace that all of these other players are in, and I still get a massive kick out of flying over B&A on my way back from somewhere, and especially if there's a passenger with me that really is just kind of putting all this together for themselves, where they just
Right.
realize like, wait a minute, everybody that's on the radio here is like the same jets that I take to come in and out of Nashville, commercial
Right.
jets. And then, you see the one right there that's flying, like where you can see the people's heads in the window. Like, it's like, it is a perpetually humbling and exciting thing. I think that, the only thing I would offer otherwise is to say the imposter syndrome on some level will always be there if you're a midlife pilot, or for most midlife pilots, because we often started flying in midlife. And so for those of us that have made this turn in midlife to start doing this, it's such a major thing to do, and it's a position of a particular responsibility and an energy and an effort and a focus. And so I can totally understand that, especially for people that were not raised around airports and just, I don't know, overly comfortable with it because of their upbringing, you're always going to feel a little bit like an imposter, and you can find ways to make that kind of feeling work for you, as opposed to letting that have a negative effect on you. And so if anything, what it should do is just keep you encouraged to remain sharp and to respect the craft, and to listen to opposing bases, figure out everything that you can about the nuances of air traffic control, do all the things you can, and you'll always be sitting just above that feeling.
Yep.
Well, Master CFI Nathan Ballard says the irony is those global pilots are looking at your 172 and wanting to be back in a 172 again. The grass is greener on both sides.
Yeah.
I totally agree, and I get the feeling, especially in a little two-seater. I do love though when you're at the airport and a busy airport, and you just walk up to someone else's plane. It doesn't matter if it's another little Rotax plane, if it's a big catfish that I like and I can ask to see inside of it. Everybody's friendly. It's all kind of on the same level, and that's when you start feeling that you're inside the club, when they're just looking at you the same as every other pilot there.
Yeah.
One more quick point on this, and then Brian, I'll pass it off to you. But
Okay.
it was a full circle moment for me. So when I flew into Hartsfield, I was nose to nose getting ready for departure on runway 26, and I was nose to nose with a 737. And he was on the south side of the runway. I was on the north side, and they let me go first. And I felt like, of course, I mean, I'm supposed to be here. It was like where, 4 years ago, I would not have felt that way.
And
So,
to be clear,
um,
there was a line of planes lined up when you're headed out,
yeah,
and
yeah.
the beast got to go out. Yeah.
All right, number 5, and this is sort of a segue from the previous. ATC is not the enemy, and do not be intimidated to talk to them and ask for something. The ability to effectively talk on the radio comes with time and experience. It doesn't have to be perfect, and it's not expected to be perfect. Tell them you are a student pilot. Be humble and be clear and concise when you talk to them. Side note, if you fly/train out of an untowered airport and don't get a lot of time to train in a towered environment, he says in all caps, make time for it. Ask your instructor to take you into a Delta or Charlie airspace and learn the communication procedures. Yeah, absolutely. I had such a strange scenario with my training because the airport that I trained at was untowered until the last 3 weeks before my check ride was scheduled, and then it became a towered airport. So I kind of had this weird benefit of being able to be in familiar territory, but just changing the communications setup. And I think that really helped me. But where it didn't help me is that I never got taken into a Charlie. I never got, any of that. I had to just figure that out on my own after I got out. I will say there's so much to say about this, right? I mean, this could be a whole thing unto itself. Like I said on the last one, listen to opposing bases.
Yeah.
If you're not listening to opposing bases, then you should be banned by the FAA and told that, or no, you shouldn't be banned by the FAA, but you should be required to use this. You can't use a headset. You have to use the speaker and a handheld microphone.
There you go.
No, so yes, do those things. Do the studying, take the time, learn how to anticipate the calls. All this particulars is a gazillion resources, apps, videos. We've talked about it, get on live ATC, watch traffic, envision things, all those things. But I will say more than anything, I think that the big point here is, as a relaying sort of tangent to the last piece about imposter syndrome, nothing will make you feel that more if you don't have that experience in your training.
Right.
So get that while you have a little bit of a safety net to really say dumb things. It doesn't mean you're not going to say dumb things after. In fact, you will more than ever, but you'll have a different attitude about it. And I think that that's really the precept for it. Is it's not about this, he speaks to just don't be intimidated. I think that comes from, you build it up in your mind. These are just people. Nobody starts out perfect. Just say what you want. Just use plain English.
Yeah.
Don't, you know what I mean? Just do whatever you got to do. And don't be afraid to be a human being. I've actually in my mind, I've never used this line on frequency, but in my mind, I actually had this kind of line ready, which was, if I ever get called out by ATC and I just really don't know what I'm doing, or I'm lost or whatever, and I'm just under it, I already had this line prepared in my head that I would never actually say, but just hearing myself say it as a prepared line makes me feel better, which is, my line is basically to say, I am a very mediocre pilot trying to be better than mediocre, And so my apologies. You're going to have to talk to me like I'm 5 or what, it's like,
Yes.
and they will, because they've got to, so don't worry about it. But anyway, there's a whole lot to this, but yeah, don't be intimidated.
If we segue from being a mediocre pilot to being a good pilot and brilliant at weather, CFI Erica said, I mess up radios all the time. There's no shame in saying, say again. Make a mistake, get over it, and move forward. I'm editing Saturday's video, and there was a call that I had to make 3 times before they understood what I was trying to say to them. And then I get done with the flight, and I'm coming in, and I get chewed out slightly, and it's like, yep, this happens. This is life, and I stumble over words, and that's okay.
Nothing wrong with that. Ted, you want to take the next one?
Yeah. So number 6 here. Once you've obtained your private pilot's license, fly. Don't feel rushed to jump into instrument. Being a 55 to 60 hour total time pilot, there's still plenty to learn outside of the training syllabus in your check ride. The amount of knowledge I gained getting an extra 100 hours between private and instrument was pivotal in my confidence and ability to fly the plane when it came to fly approaches, holds, and understand the dynamics of flying instrument. As a non-instrument flyer, but someone who knows the progression from just getting your ticket to having hundreds of hours, it is a huge difference. And I was flying with a younger time pilot recently, and it was a good reminder of the things that I'm not intimidated by anymore. And getting those things to become natural is huge.
Yeah. Yeah. When I finished my private, at the time, the flight school was owned by 2 guys. It wasn't a big corporation. And they said, go out and get some experience before you start an instrument. Because I was ready to start an instrument right then and there. I said, get some cross-country time. Enjoy what you've learned. Go smell the roses. And I felt like that was incredibly valuable feedback. And there's nothing wrong with going to instrument straight after. I'm not knocking it, but for me, my brain needed a break. I took my time with it, and I was thankful that I did.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people say, I'm obviously on the cusp of all that, and I can tell you for sure, being comfortable with flying the plane, also knowing what plane, if you can get trained in the plane you're actually going to be flying, do that,
Right.
and then above all, once you've flown through a lot of busy airspace, gotten vectored around, dealt with all these kind of weird idiosyncratic things, every flight there's something, just a weird little wrinkle, that's just, oh, this is slightly different, um you got to have, I think, some of those, so that when you do get into instrument, I've come to learn about these helmet fires from you guys, and if you have that much underneath you already of confidence on the radios, you've taken, even if it's not an, accepting a clearance, getting flight following on the ground from an airport and having to read things
Yeah.
back, and just all of those things, that's going to help you. So yeah, do it if you can, sure. But I definitely, I mean, there's a lot of CFIs that have half the hours that I do that have never actually gone anywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know, to each their own.
I'm going to cut in before Ben reads the next one. One of the things is, I think that once you have a couple hundred hours, you realize the advantage of IFR as well. And
Yes.
that to me, and Brian, I don't know if you've had the same experience, but it was like, I didn't understand the need for it, or that I wanted to go that far. And you get a couple hundred hours, you're like, oh, okay, I see the difference here.
Oh no, I learned like 5 hours into my.
So I'll take number 7. Fly with other pilots who are not necessarily CFIs and push the boundaries of your comfort zone. Find that pilot who has been around the block or pattern a time or two, who has real world flying experience. A lot of the CFIs in my area are in their early 20s and went from school straight to instructing. I sought finding someone who wasn't a CFI to bounce ideas and thoughts off of, and not expecting to get a by the book answer from the far aim. And I'd like to point out a comment from Alpha Juliet. I've learned so many ways to not do things. I've recently spent a good bit of time flying with Ben. Not sure if these are connected. That's great, AJ. I'll make sure that your seat's taken by somebody else next time. So, because I certainly don't want to teach you anything to not learn going forward. But I do feel like there's a lot of value in what Braeden is saying here. I pick up on things that other pilots do a lot. Nobody's wrong. There's just a lot of ways to skin the cat, so to speak. And I think there's a lot of value in that.
Yeah, I mean, if you play an instrument, what are you doing? You're listening to everybody you can listen to that is doing something that you are, interested in learning about. You're analyzing what they're doing. You're borrowing from them. You're taking things. It doesn't matter what craft you're in. You're going to be needing to have peers that are walking around with a different take on things. And yeah, like you said, Ben, it's not you don't have to, everybody's got their own look. This ties in a little bit back also to the, was it last episode or 2 episodes?
2 ago, 89.
Yeah. We talked about just the importance of mentors and having those. And that's really just having a continued relationship with people in this way. But yeah, fly with other pilots. I mean, and honestly, you can, I mean, I suggest always trying to fly with people that know more than you, but I've actually had maybe, some valuable experiences from being in a place where I was flying with somebody that was behind me, in terms of the training hours, or, maybe I was 20 hours into my certificate and I'm flying around with somebody that, maybe is on the verge of soloing, because you're both in still very much a training mentality, and you can kind of share a lot of things, and any teacher will tell you that the reason why they like to teach is because they learn so much by teaching.
Right.
So that's a symbiotic thing that can work both ways.
Yeah, Braden sent this a few episodes back, and we covered mentoring and being a mentor after that, and it's very good. We learn, especially when we go to midlife meetups, sitting with another midlifer, we learn a lot just watching someone else and seeing what their strategy is.
I would like to go ahead and post a correction and thank our friend Erica Gilbert at AeroSafe. Go check out her channel. There are a lot of ways to feed the cat. Let's just let's go with that and accept my apologies for the non-PC way of saying that.
Brian, you have number 8? Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, it's hilarious that I'm doing this one. All right.
It
So
is, it is absolutely.
let me tell
poetic.
let me read authoritatively what somebody else said about instrument training. Instrument training is an absolute mind game. It's like learning to fly the plane in a completely different way coming out of private pilot. Expect to be behind the airplane for what seems to be every lesson. Expect to botch radio calls and completely forget how to talk on the radio while flying the plane. Then one day you think it's never going to click, and it just does. Be patient. Don't be too hard on yourself, and don't feel like you have to get it done in a certain amount of time. Instrument training, out of all the training, shouldn't be treated as a check the box endorsement. So yeah, I can relate to all that, even though I haven't been fully, I haven't been down that path. But what I find interesting is that much of what he said here, which is great, also applies to any rating, any certification, it's expect to be behind for a while, and then you're going to have a moment of doubt and existential dread, and be excited when that moment of existential dread comes and you start to feel like I'm not cut out for this, because what that means is you are on the verge of it clicking. So, awesome. Yeah. What do you think?
I think you could be on that verge for a while, and that helmet fire could continue burning for a while. But yes, realizing that there's more to learn, and there's more progress to be made is fantastic.
I would say that everything you said is absolutely true. That there is that instrument rating. There is that point in time when things click. There's for private pilot training. There's that point in time when landings click. I've always said instrument is cerebral. It's all in your head. It's all visualizing a lot of different things. It is super effective. The thing I like about instrument, though, is it is like its own little world. It's like if you go to Comic-Con and you go and there's all these storylines with Star Wars or Lord of the Rings that people can just go into forever. There's so much depth to everything instrument, and you don't have to go deep. You can get proficient enough to bust through the top and bust through the bottom, stay with marginal VFR conditions, whatever the case may be. There's enough of it. You can go as deep as you want to, and you can make a career out of learning about IFR. It's just fascinating to me. It's something that interests me a lot. So yeah, we've talked about helmet fires when we were at the fly-in. I think CFI Sam said, and tell me your name again. And I told him to stand by. I didn't know. I was trying to figure out what was going on in the airplane. So don't be scared of it. Go after it. It's a whole nother reality, is the way I would like to say it. So Ted, how about the next one?
Yeah. Go back to the fundamentals and basics of flying regularly. Slow flight, stall setups, steep turns, emergency procedures, and ground reference maneuvers tend to go by the wayside once you're done with training. For me, it became about gaining cross-country PIC time. I became very proficient flying from point A to B to C really fast. Needless to say, I wasn't purposely stalling the plane, maneuvering during slow flight, and practicing steep turns anymore. It showed dramatically during my first commercial lessons. Continue to do the basics, and your future commercial CFI and wallet will thank you. Totally. Shout out to Wendell Geek, who when he was out of his private pilot training, he would go back every 3 months and do all the procedures out of the ACS. I adopted that and did that for a while, and I still go back, especially when you find yourself on a flight that you've got a little bit extra time to burn. You don't have somebody with you. Those are the times to go practice something and make sure you've knocked out the things you're not sure about.
Would you like me to talk now?
I think I do. You look like you're getting ready to say something. And again, this will probably be
Well,
worse when we're in the same room together. But I thought you took a deep breath, like, here
no,
you.
just I don't know. The suspense was killing me. No, so I was just thinking about there's some sort of a relationship that I think we have with the rigor of study and practice. And there is, I believe, a little bit of a feeling, at least at first, of almost like a little bit of a Stockholm syndrome kind of thing, where it's like, what do you mean? I have to evaluate myself on these maneuvers, like what, And so I guess what that's leading me to is just to say that to add to this, get a CFI to go up with you for no good reason. Just if you feel like doing this periodic evaluation of those things, do not feel like it is some sign of weakness or less capability. It's super easy to just say, hey, CFI, I'm coming up, I'm going to be flying on Tuesday. I'd love to just spend, an hour flying around, and I'd like to just go through some maneuvers and just have you just check out what I'm doing. If maybe I've developed a bad habit, maybe I'm not as sharp on these things as I should be. It doesn't matter. You're always going to learn something.
Absolutely.
So it's not like you just got it and it's over. So, go back and do those things. And then one other thing I would like to say is that I think a lot of people get into the trap of, they get their private pilot certificate, they start flying, which is great. And then they start going places, which is great. But then they don't go back to those basics, doing pattern work, doing some of the things that you need to do to stay sharp and all of that. And so then what happens is their landings start to get sketchier. They're just stick and rudder starts to get not as good because you're just flying an hour to a place, and
That's right.
it's not the same. And then the last thing I'll say is that I've been doing stuff too, where even if you don't even have to make a whole session up of, I'm going to go do all these maneuvers. You can weave that stuff into what you're already doing. I will, if I have it's on one of my videos that I actually did. It wasn't about this, but it didn't occur to me until somebody commented on my video and they said, wow, that was a crazy landing at the end of that video. And I'd forgotten that I was doing a power off 180 into an airport I'd never been into before, because that's what I'm, usually do power off 180s when you are where you are, your home airport or whatever. I just got into this thing where on cross countries, if I don't like it, go around. But you can always throw little things and to mix it up. So yeah, get back to fundamentals and basics whenever you can.
I think I'll be real quick on this. I think you'll find after you're 100 hours into flying, stalls are actually fun. Or these maneuvers, when they're not, you don't have the pressure to perform them to a specific standard in front of a DPE. They're actually kind of fun. It's just not the same, and it doesn't hurt to keep those skills sharp. So we have one more. Let's go ahead and knock this one out. Be honest with yourself. And again, this is from Braeden D. Tips on top 10 tips for student pilots. Be honest with yourself.
New pilot.
New pilot, student pilot. Thank you. Be honest with yourself when it comes to personal minimums, and know that they should be changing continuously, better or for worse. My personal minimums are drastically different when my friends and family are in the airplane versus when I'm solo or with the CFI. Getting my instrument rating created a whole new page of personal minimums when it comes to weather, clouds, and nighttime flying. There have been several accidents that have been covered by other YouTubers of people who did not stick with their personal minimums, and families were killed, and it was very sad. We've all done videos on sticking with personal minimums. One of the 3 videos I've ever published is, having outs and sticking to your personal minimums. Expand them when you can. Um, it's that self-discipline that really keeps us all safe.
We have a whole episode about this as well, so you guys can find that. It'll be in the show notes.
Yep.
This is such a huge thing, and it's such a strange combination of hard line truths and rules with this combined with this sort of subjective, personally owned, not overseen thing. I just find it to be a fascinating discipline. And some people don't do it at all. Some people, they make their minimums, but they're loose about it. And then others are very, very sincere and strict about it. And I think that all of us, if we're honest with ourselves, can be any one of those people on any given day. And that's what we have to monitor ourselves for. And that's what this is about, is just giving you while you're on the ground, thinking about these things more clearly.
Yep.
What are you doing? But I will say, of all the things, I feel that the most valuable thing you can do, not just by having the minimums, is to share those minimums and be accountable to them, socially responsible for them. So that's one of the great things about our community, is that people put their we have a whole thread where people go and put their minimums in there. And it doesn't mean that we're policing people, but there's something to be said for, I would say, in the same way that maybe, I don't know, I've heard other people say this. I always think about the accident report and what is that accident report going to say? And I don't want to be one of these people that defied my own minimums and got myself into a situation. I mean, obviously things can happen to anybody, extenuating circumstance, whatever. I'm just saying, generally speaking, I'm thinking about all of those things. I don't, we've gone through the killing zone. We do it in our, on our Patreon, we have conversations about it, and all of those reports tell me, guys, that you're not looking at that going, it's not the same thing as saying like, oh, that would never be me. It's different. It's saying that could totally be me, but I'm going to start looking at systematically how I can take myself out of this, break this chain.
Right.
And minimums are the best way to do that.
Absolutely. And
Agreed.
as a new pilot, especially, I think there's a lot of time that you need to spend about what your minimums are, how you're going to increase them. Some of that you can do on your own. Some of that you might want to CFI. Some of it you might want a mentor that you can talk about your numbers with. That, especially as a new pilot, is something you need to think very seriously about.
Absolutely. Well, I thought these were a very thorough and well thought out list that Braeden sent to us. A couple of comments from the group. Our friend Arrow Grizzly, yes, went up with the CFI just a couple of days ago, and he spotted some things that I didn't even realize I was doing. And for those of us who don't film our flights, it's really hard to catch those. I would dare say that it was nearly impossible to catch those. Absolutely agree with that. And it's very easy to develop bad habits without really, they can be very subtle and you just don't even realize that it's happening.
Yeah.
So,
well, I want to thank Braeden for sending this in. He spent all the time writing it, and it's fantastic. We'll get in touch and send you a hoodie or whatever you want, probably a hoodie. With the logo, and because it's really been fantastic to cover.
Shouldn't it be 10 hoodies?
Yes. Yes.
Hey, hey, we got a budget here, Mr. Siskin, burning through it all at once. I do want to take a minute to recognize our new patrons from last week. In the Lando-Matic tier, and I think he has joined us in the chat. We got Ryan K. Thanks for joining us tonight, Ryan. The Hershey bar level, we got Mark H., Stephen S., Alex F., and Tom. And then at the Beast Stoll Kit level, we have Aaron B, who flies a 182 RG. So,
RG.
Yeah.
yeah, he went up me there. That's all the better there.
That's awesome. I'm so happy that people keep showing support and helping us out, and it's going to help us make this episode 100 fiasco possible. So I'm pretty stoked
Hey,
about
listen,
that.
we'll be in West Virginia. We'll be together. What else do we need?
Yeah, it's going to be great. And he's told me, Chris has told me about these pepperoni roll things that they have
Yeah.
there. I don't know if that's like, isn't this place kind of close to Pittsburgh? Isn't that a Pittsburgh thing?
I think
Where's
it may
Josh?
be. We need to reach out to Mr. McElhatton and see what we so we can pull together there.
Yeah. So yeah, and is it hard to rent a keg these days? I mean, what are we doing at this house? Are we gonna do keg stands?
So we're midlifers, Brian.
We're gonna be like Will
there'll
Ferrell and Back to School.
No, there'll be a bourbon, there'll be a scotch, there'll be a couple of bottles of wine.
And
that's
we'll
how
be
we have
in
to
bed
play it these
before
days.
11.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. No, I'm super excited about this, fellas. I think it's gonna be kind of the coolest thing. I love the idea of all four of us being in the same spot. That's what makes it special to me more than anything.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And next week we'll be getting together. It will be mine and Ted's 1-year anniversary of being on the podcast.
Okay.
I'm not sure if
I
y'all
was waiting
realize
for the
that.
clarification.
Yes.
Whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Podcast anniversary. Thank you for
Guys,
coming
you got to do a better job on these show notes. I don't even know what's going on here.
Hey, thanks everybody who's in the chat and who's joined us and has contributed to it. We all really very much appreciate you. We'll be back together next Monday night. I can't remember the topic we've decided upon, but I'm sure it will be a good one. So signing off for episode 91 of the Midlife Pilot Podcast. Good night, everybody.